Call me to order. And for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here.
Here. Here. One nation, under God, indivisible. Here.
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 Okay, thank you. Please do approval of the agenda. So moved. Hang on, I've got to click on this here. Not following.
Here.
Okay, it is recommended that the agenda for the September 8th, 2020 board meeting be approved as presented. So moved. Second. Any questions, comments, concerns about the agenda?
For 703 and 704 under consent, would I just mention that later?
We can pull that out
Okay.
later if you like.
Yes, please.
Okay. Just remind me.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Here.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
It's recommended that the agenda for the September 8th, 2020 board meeting be approved as presented. And online, do we have any comments from the public this evening? Questions, comments, concerns about the agenda?
For 703 and 704 under consent, would
That's the YouTube
I
volume
just
is-
mention that later?
We can pull that out
Okay.
later if you like.
Yes, please.
Remind me.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
It's recommended that the agenda for the September 8th. Okay, do you show anyone with comments from the public? And online, do we have any comments from the public this evening? Questions, comments, concerns about the agenda?
For 703 and 704
On
under
your YouTube audio,
consent, would
it's all the way
I
up.
just mention that later?
We can pull that out
Okay.
later if you like.
Yes, please. Just in case.
I don't see any hands.
Mr. Funk, if you see anyone, just holler out when you do, okay?
Okay. I do not see any.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to 401, presentation with Mr. Fedison on our class of 2020.
He needs to be on here.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's well. Hope you can hear me.
Hang on, Mr. Fedison. There you go. Mr. Funk, if you see anyone, just holler out when you do, okay? All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to 401, presentation with Mr. Fedison on our class of 2020.
He needs to be on here.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's well. Hope you can hear me.
Oh, he's not. Hang on, Mr. Fedison. There you go. Mr. Funk, if you see anyone, just holler out when you do, okay? All right, looks
Okay.
like you're on there now, Mr. Fedison. 401, presentation with Mr. Fedison on our class of 2020.
He needs to be on here.
All right, thank you. When we had
The YouTube
talked
audio.
last spring, everyone's well. Hope you can hear me. Graduation and things went well with graduation. I want to again thank everyone for their time and support and getting
Just holler out when you do, okay?
off and running last
All right,
spring.
you're on there now, Mr. Fedison. 401.
I wanted to give an update.
Presentation with Mr. Fedison on our class of
Regards to-
2020. Mr. Fedison, if you can hear me, I think we're going to
All
ask
right,
you to
thank
move
you.
down on
When we
the
had talked
agenda.
last
Some
spring,
technical difficulties.
everyone's
So we're
well.
going
Hope
to
you
move
can
on
hear
to
me.
402 with Mrs. Burnford and
Graduation and
Mr. Simpson.
things went well with graduation. I want to again
Thank
thank
you.
everyone for their time and support and getting
Just holler out when you do, okay?
off and running last
All
spring.
right, you're on there now, Mr. Fedison. 401.
I wanted to give an
Presentation
update.
with Mr. Fedison on our class of
Regards to-
Mr. Fedison, if you can hear me, I think we're going to
All right,
ask you to
thank
move
you.
down
When
on
we
the
had talked
agenda.
last
Some
spring,
technical difficulties.
everyone's
We're
well.
going
Hope
to
you
move
can
on
hear
to
me.
402 with Mrs. Burnford and
Graduation and things went well with graduation. I want to again thank everyone for their time and support and getting
Just holler out when you do, okay?
off and running last
All
spring.
right, you're on there now,
I want to give an update.
Mrs. Simpson, you want to come up to the microphone? Now just talk right there.
Things went well with graduation. I want to again thank everyone for their
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Are you ready, Eric, or no? They're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we're trying to-
We good? So, I've sent a few things out, but Title IX has changed dramatically since probably last year at this time. And so we have a lot of steps that we have to take. So Mrs. Simpson and I tried to put together just a short overview tonight so that you would have some idea of where we're going and what we need to do. I shared a slides presentation. I don't know if you can bring that up or not, Mr. Fung, but giving you a little history, brief history about Title IX. It was funny, we had an admin meeting last week and somebody mentioned Title IX and looked at them more because typically Title IX is considered the right to play, the balance of female and male overview tonight so that you would have some idea of where we're going and what we need to do. I shared so I have a little bit of the history presentation. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 protected against discrimination based on race, color, religion, history about Title IX. It was funny, we had an admin last weekend and the Education Amendment in 1972 indicated that no person on the basis of sex could be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal assistance. So that's where we got the idea that it was a sports thing, so to speak. It was, nobody can be excluded. There should be equal rights or equal participation from male and female. In the 1970s, some groups, the media and others included the term sexual harassment in relation to on the basis of sex. And then, however, up until now, no Title IX regulation addressed that sexual harassment specifically. There were several cases in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s that involved sexual harassment and sexual discrimination that led to all of these recent changes. I summarized about, 56 years of history in about 2 minutes. So if you need more information about that, I would be certainly happy to share that. So the newer regulations were adopted on May 6, 2020, and they were enacted on August 14th, 2020. Now, if you recall, we had to make some very kind of quick switches, and we asked the board to pass a resolution saying, because we don't have all of these pieces figured out yet, we will follow the law. We are going to follow whatever the law says. So there was a resolution passed at the August 11th board meeting that allowed us to continue to work through the process to make sure we're in compliance with the law. The new regulations for Title IX talks a lot about sexual wrongdoing versus sexual harassment, and there are fundamental premises. And we received all of this information that I'm sharing, I should say that, from the training that Michelle Simpson and I did. The new regulations require that we have certain roles and responsibilities, and we designate those. Those 5, people or 5 roles we have to identify. That's one of the first things we have to do. And one of the very first things we have to do is identify a Title IX coordinator. For the past several years, for as long as I know, I don't know, maybe longer, Ken Bean has been our Title IX coordinator. I don't think he knew that till these new laws came out. So that alone has to be much more deliberate than it was. So there are 5 basic roles, but there can be more than one person in those roles. There's a Title IX coordinator, which is most typically the director of HR. In our case, Mrs. Simpson will be. The investigators and the informal facilitator, a first level decision maker, and appeal decision maker. And as a district, we can decide what those are. The new regulations include lots and lots of required trainings. Mrs. Simpson and I spent almost 2 full days in virtual trainings with 2 law firms, 11 legal group, I guess they're called 11 legal group, and their legal group did a combined training across the state. And so we completed those trainings. One of the nice things about those trainings were they gave us a whole bunch of stuff, including the trainings that we need to do for other people. We also have to make lots and lots of changes in our practices, procedures, and policies.
And the, probably the bigger piece is the documentation and record keeping that wasn't evident before. Before I go any further, Mrs. Simpson, did I miss anything?
Not so far, no.
Okay. So I mentioned what we've done so far. The board passed a resolution, we had training. We've begun to identify which district employees will fill the required roles. The board only needs to approve the Title IX coordinator. All the rest are, can just be assigned as we move through as a district. In most cases, they will be an administrator. Just as an example, we're thinking that there needs to be an investigator for each level, elementary, middle school, high school, for students as well as staff. We've talked a little bit about who could be in those roles. We will certainly bring all those forward whenever we write all of the policies and practices that we need to do. We're beginning to work through the to-do list. Levin and Beard gave us plenty of to-do lists. I shared tonight the board to-do list for now, or at least so you know where we're going. The first says adopt a motion superseding all policies, code of conduct, or administrative regulations inconsistent with Title IX or new policy. Good news is we did that at the August 11th board meeting. It just basically says we're going to follow the law. Although our policy might not be completely in line with the law, we're going to follow the law instead of the policy at this point. We need to adopt a new Title IX policy and administrative guidelines if needed. Administrative guidelines if needed. We need a new Title IX policy. PSBA is offering some templates for that. They're still working on those, to be honest with you. We need to designate a Title IX coordinator, and I mentioned that it had been Ken in the past, and as the director of HR, Michelle Simpson needs to be appointed. My proposal is that at the next board meeting, you appoint her as the Title IX coordinator. And then finally, one of the things the board is going to have to do is amend code of student conduct. So you approved all of the handbooks as we normally do. Those handbooks may not be accurate now because we have to add Title IX regulations to them. So that's something we're going to have to look at handbooks again, or at least in our handbooks mention that we will follow again the law and not necessarily what we have written. So our next steps are to develop a plan, create and establish processes of what this is going to look like. We need to review and complete immediate requirements. The first and most pressing one is Mrs. Simpson.
Posting on the district website.
We have 2,100 pages, I believe it is,
Training.
of training that we need to post to the website that explains everything Title IX. We'll get that done after this meeting tonight. In fact, we need to start to work through the to-do list for administrators, including consulting legal counsel. We'll be working with Scott and Attorney Beard through some of this. Create templates for Bellefonte Area School District. So just as an example, if there is a complaint or there's a person who has a complaint they'd like to lodge, there have to be forms for that. Those forms have to be standard across the district, and so we need to develop all those. They gave us sample templates, and there were 17 different types of templates that they gave us as samples, which again would be probably part of that administrative regulations whenever we look at the policy. We need to assign the other required roles. We need to hold trainings for persons in those assigned roles. And then we need to begin the planning for training staff and students in the new regulation. It's a very quick and very brief overview. It is an immense project. It's going to require an immense amount of time, but in the end, it'll all be good. So I kind of flew through that too. Are there any questions?
Who is writing the code of student conduct, and when do you anticipate that happening?
We need to, first, the thing we need to do is change the policy, the board policy. And then we'll have to write, we have a student code of conduct, we have to amend it. And so those ones that are in the handbooks, those kinds of things, they're gonna have to be amended to reflect the requirements.
And of course, this came with funding too.
Oh, yeah, lots of, yeah, sure. Did you have anything, Mrs. Simpson, that I missed?
I would just add, Mrs. Burnaford did a great job overview, as she said, 2 days worth of training and cumbersome amounts of documents that we have to go through, templates that will be used through the process. There is going to be a much more deliberate and formal process when we get to the end of this. There's going to be an appeal process. There's going to be an actual form that they would make a complaint to. And everything is going to be housed on the website and very easily located by students and staff, which in my opinion is a very good thing. The fact that the time frame that we had to complete all of that was so narrow was one of the difficult things, obviously with school starting as well. But we're moving in the right direction. As she mentioned, we both did the training, and we've already talked about the people at the different levels that we can identify for students and staff. So we're gonna be bringing a lot to you for review.
Any other questions? Oh, I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Mr. Fedison to where we can hear him? We have to plug that speaker back in. Okay, well, let me know when we can find him. We'll move on to 4.03, policies for first discussion. Those policies are on your board docket there. So the policy committee had met. I think we had a pretty good session. It was several hours long, so we're hoping to keep future ones, maybe 3 or 4 policies at a time and keep them down to 1-hour sessions. We do have a session scheduled later for this week, but these are the ones that made it through that process. And I don't know if there's anyone here from the committee that would like to make any comments on any of them. Good, bad, indifferent? Or does anyone else have any questions on any of the policies that are before us?
Items in red, are those from PSBA?
Items in bold are from PSBA, items in red are from the committee. I guess I'll just make the comment that 004.1, the student board representative, that seemed to really take a lot of conversation from us. I think, so what we're trying to do is either align our practice with our policy or align our policy with our practice or find some hybrid thereof. And I think we felt that that was a little too descriptive for a policy. We thought that had a better place as an administrative regulation for a lot of that. And I think we tossed around the idea of having a board mentor for the student representatives and just what their participation in board activities would look like. And some of that will go through, it needs to go through some more discussion through your administrative regulation process, but that was one that took a lot of time.
I would welcome some changes with that. You know, it's a good concept, but it seems underutilized, and under maximized. So,
That's exactly what we talked about. We even talked about having them participate a little bit more, including faculty representation too. That was a great conversation.
That was a
It's really
great
good idea, Max, to have a mentor, and we think it should be you.
I would gladly accept, but yeah, I think
you could, you know, be on their level.
right. Yeah, I think definitely John highlighted a lot of 4.1 is we had a lot of stuff in there that wasn't really aligned with what we were practicing and stuff like that. So I think kind of revamping that entire policy will benefit the board as much as it will benefit the student body and our representatives, and kind of bring us in line as a district student, really help us understand what the students' needs and expectations are.
Yeah, so now that they're out there, of course, the next meeting will be the second reading. I know that it just made it to the agenda, so this is a first chance for a lot of people to see these. Please look through them, and if you just have a comment, feel free. So the committee is myself, Max, Julie, and Donna. So feel free to reach out to any one of those, and Tammy, of course. Reach out to any one of those if you have a question that's easily answered. And we'll see how it goes for the next meeting. Any questions at this time on those policies? Okay, thank you. How are we making out with 402 over there?
I've got
401.
We just need to get his attention.
We need to be
There
able
he is. There he is, he's waving.
we need to plug that speaker in so we can hear him.
Mr.
Fedison, can you hear us?
I hear you. Do you hear me?
We can't hear him. 1 minute. Hold, please.
How about now?
How about now?
We still can't hear him.
Yeah, the volume up.
Testing, testing.
Testing, testing. I still hear you.
In his office.
Well, maybe we could leave him unmuted and he can keep hollering at us through the meeting. And when he sees a reaction from us, he'll know he's in. How's that?
And the thing of it is,
Now's your
it'll
chance.
take
Say
him
whatever
2
you want,
minutes maybe
Mr.
to share the
Featherston.
information.
If you get a rise out of us, you know we can hear you. All right, with that, we'll move on to 4.04 with PSBA elections and Ms. Smith.
So by October 11th, we are charged with electing, we have one vote for PSBA officers. Typically, there's one person who's vying for president, et cetera, but this year the vice president is contested. So I did reach out to Mr. Lumley Sapansky to find out if he knew either Sabrina Backer or Daniel O'Keefe. He said that he's heard of both of them. They're both highly qualified. So some different reasons why we might choose one over the other. Sabrina Backer is from Franklin area. So she's someone who's more of a rural representative, whereas Mr. O'Keefe is from right outside of Pittsburgh. I don't know if that makes a difference to any of you or not. Sabrina Backer is the vice president of her school board. She seemed to be a good voice for career and technical education. Her job is as a person who works for the Venango County Elections Bureau. She sounded very enthusiastic and competent. Mr. O'Keefe has a lot of experience on the board and at PSBA. He has 7 years experience. He was on a bylaws committee. He has served 3 terms as his board president and many other boards. He is definitely a good advocate for funding changes for schools, and feels strongly about reaching out to our local legislators, which of course I really liked. Mr. Lumley Sapansky was leaning more toward Daniel O'Keefe, said he has spent many, many years earning his chops. He thought that just because he's from Pittsburgh doesn't make him too out of touch. So his recommendation was Daniel O'Keefe, just because he seems to have more experience. But otherwise, there are no other contested seats. So I don't know how you feel about going with his recommendation, or if you would like to see someone local. Who's Sabrina Backer? If it matters to anybody.
Is the information about both of them on the PSBA website? Right?
It is.
Do we have to make a decision now?
No, October 11th. So you could research it on your own.
Yeah.
Would you like to do that? Does that sound?
So we can put
Good
it on the
idea.
agenda for the next meeting for the vote.
Yep, just click on their biographies and poke around and form your own opinion. So it is up to either of these two to choose who would like to be the other one.
I'll withdraw my name.
Okay. You weren't that excited about the whole Saturday morning event? And I think as a new voice, Julie would be, Mrs. Fitzgerald, excuse me, would be a good voice. So Mr. Bean, Mrs. Smith, and Mrs. Fitzgerald. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fetter.
Do we have to vote on those tonight?
We probably should, since they All right, thank you, Ms. Smith. And we'll move on to approval of the minutes with 501. It is recommended that the minutes from the regular meeting of August 11th, 2020 be approved.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Gazal?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner? Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Batch?
Yes.
Thank you. 601, do we have, is Brianna with us this evening? We online, I guess we're having still have her on here.
You guys hear us? Can you guys hear us?
I can hear you just fine.
That was close.
Let's see.
Let's see. Can you guys hear us?
Situation because our superintendent and our pandemic coordinator are much more up to date to that, and I would not know even where to start. So, and that seems to be what's pretty much taking everyone's attention. So my report is pretty brief. The House was back in session last week, and the Senate was to be back in session today. Pennsylvania School Board Association is working with our legislators to introduce a proposal in both the House and Senate that would provide temporary limited liability protection for schools during the pandemic, because despite all of our careful preparations, it's not possible for schools to guarantee that our students and staff would never be exposed to COVID-19. Districts were asked to send letters to the governor, which I did on our behalf. And PSBA reported that serious conversations have taken place this past week on that limited liability. Governor Wolf announced the release of $20 million to school districts to help schools provide compensatory education services for students with special needs who may have been negatively affected by the pandemic. It looked as though our district is receiving $24,000. I don't know much about that. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, we'll be using it for special education for an aide that is working with a special needs student at home.
Correct.
So they can attend school synchronously.
Synchronously.
Yeah, one of the two.
And compared to some other school districts, we did pretty well.
Yeah, we did okay.
I was pleased. Senate Bill 1216 was approved by the House Education Committee that allows for temporary waivers with regard to teachers seeking and maintaining professional certifications. And finally, there is a link there of important dates coming up. If anyone is interested in registering for any of the conferences, Fall Virtual Advocacy Day, I will be attending. The PSBA and PASA School Leadership Conference on October 14th and 15th. I will be attending that one, but not the Equity Summit because I think I ran out of steam. I'm hoping that someone will be attending that. That seems to be timely with regard to some things that have been happening in our district. So I just linked the dates there so you could see if you're interested in signing up for any of those events. And that seems to be what's happening.
Okay,
Any
thank you.
questions, comments?
Can anyone in the meeting hear me?
Heard anything about the Equity Summit? Do we have anyone so far interested in that? I don't know. I don't.
I know
Because
that's tough.
Testing.
When we get to my report, we have Mr. Bachman and Mrs. Simpson are going to talk about where we are with the whole equity, diversity, inclusion piece.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
You're welcome.
All right, on to my report. Some of it's been covered there in the policy. So just with the building, Hunt Engineers did present at our last building and, or last meeting, I'm sorry. We did have the discussion about looking at our funding options, so we had a better idea how to choose a path forward. We didn't get the information in time to put onto board docs, but you'll have a handout this evening that Ken got out to everybody. Ken, can you just briefly go over those
Sure.
two funding options? And we'll put this on the agenda for the next meeting, so public or anybody else that's interested can participate as well. But in the meantime, Ken?
Yes, scenario one is basically what we looked at in the past, $30 million project using our current debt and restructuring it. That'd be occur in two steps. Right now, they're just projecting 2022 and 2023. We would have refund most of the existing bonds. There'd be two pieces that you can see there, the Series A of 2016 and the Series AA of 2008. There would be some monies left over from those that would continue on. That would go in with the new bond of $15,065,000. Then in step two, we'd do another $15,245,000 with some additional funds left over from non-refunding of the 2017 bond. And basically what we're showing there is in the last column is there'd be no effect on the tax millage one way or the other increase. It'd be a slight decrease. It's very negligible. And that's estimated with some other factors involved, but basically it's a break even. On the flip side of that is scenario two, and we're showing $70 million, which is the top end of the various options that Hunt showed. And this is just being used for illustrative purposes. We're not saying we're going to do 70 million, just showing you what that would look like. Step one and two are basically the same as scenario one. And then we added steps 3, 4, and 5, which would be in subsequent years, 2024, 25, and 26. And we're broken out into just under 10 million in 2024, 15 million, and 15 million in steps 4 and 5. And if we would do that, it would add 4.5 mils accumulative to that. So it's basically what we've been saying all along, that we can do 30 to 35 million, give or take a few million in there, without a tax millage effect one way or the other. But once we go above that number, it would add to the tax implications, and that is just strictly the debt portion would go up 4.5 mils over those 4 or 5 years.
And for clarification, that's about roughly 2.5%.
Yes.
So again, we'll have this on the next agenda for further discussion. I think the 22nd of it is our next meeting. But I just wanted to get it out hot off the press and give you a chance to think things over so we can have more productive discussion at our next meeting. And that also gives us some insight on how we might be able to phase any project that we have. So that would affect the path that we choose, knowing that we have the ability to phase that into different borrowed amounts. So, and what the ramifications would be.
Again, I point out that's based on today's rates and everything bond. Obviously, we don't know what the bond market's going to look like 2 months from now, let alone 5 or 6 years from now. So.
Right. And so there will be another podcast trying to reach out to the public on September 15th. And that's about the latest activity. I know that they're working on, Mr. Musser had mentioned some options within options, so to speak. So they're trying to vet out some of that stuff to get us some more information for their next presentation. If they can get far enough along, it'd be nice to have them presented again at our next meeting to see where we're at. So that's all I had. If anyone has any questions. Okay.
So the issue, people on YouTube and people on YouTube and
I wonder if, so am I being fed back through that speaker there? So I wonder if I log into the Zoom and turn my speakers up, can you loop it back that way? We'll have to see if it creates a problem. All right, I'll try to do that here as Tammy should be more than 2 minutes with her report.
It's gonna be a long meeting. I have guest speakers during my report. You know it's gonna be a long one.
Okay, so we'll see if we can work that out and go from there. So with that, we'll move to Mrs. Burniford.
Okay, so as we go through portions of this report, you noticed when I sent it earlier, posted early, I was like, I'll tell you more about that on Tuesday. I'll tell you more about that on Tuesday. And I have lots to share of that. I'll tell you more about on Tuesday. So I just want to report, and I want to publicly say what an absolutely awesome start to the school year we've had. It has been amazing. The kids have been amazing. The teachers have been amazing. The parents have been amazing. Kids are smiling. Kids are happy. They're happy to be in school. Teachers are happy to teach them. It is just very invigorating to walk in any school right now. It's amazing. The kids have been amazing. Parents have been supportive. I had visions. I tell you the story of a kindergartner slingshotting that mask across the room. Nothing like that has happened. Kids want to be there. They keep their mask on. They have their own mask breaks. They go outside. I was by the high school today, and there's some high school classes outside having outdoor class. It has just been absolutely remarkable. It really has, and it's a testament to to our kids and to our staff and to our parents. At this point, as of tonight, I can tell you we have 0 cases in our schools in staff or students. We're really trying. We're keeping everything as clean, as sanitized as we possibly can, following the health and safety plan that we have. And then I'll have Karen and Deb talk about that in a minute. I would like to give the board an update of what has happened in Center County in the last week. So there are 2 ways that we would change our instructional model that's in our health and safety plan. Those 2 ways are if we had an outbreak in our schools and if we had a county transmission rate that moved into another category. The governor has gotten rid of, basically speaking, red, yellow, and green that's in our plan. They basically turned that into low, moderate, and substantial transmission rates. Center County was in the low at one point and moved to the moderate, and then just this past week we moved into the substantial. To explain what they are, they're all on the Pennsylvania Department of Health website, but basically speaking, to be in the low, you have to have less than 10 cases per 100,000 and less than 5% positivity rate. Be in the moderate, you can have 10 to 100 cases per 100,000 people and have a 10%, is it 10% or 5% positivity rate? And then the substantial is if you have more than 100 cases per 100,000 people or a high positivity rate of more than 10%. Center County today fell into the substantial category because there are 105 cases per 100,000 people. Now those numbers came out on Friday, and I kind of knew we were moving that direction. I mean, we met the criteria, so I sort of knew that we were going to move to that substantial transmission rate. So I did some more investigating into those numbers and where those cases are. And as I reported, I think to the board, and I sent a letter to the staff, the number of cases in the 16823 and 16841 zip codes are minimal, very, very minimal. In fact, I just looked at it today. There's only been 3 new cases in 16823 in the last 7 days and 3 cases in 16841 in the last 7 days. I'd also point out that those 2 zip codes also span our district and other districts. So when I say 16823, those 3 cases, whoever they might be, could be over on the other side of Milesburg, or they could be in our town. Either way, it's not a very significant outbreak to say that we have 3 new cases in 7 days in the Bellefonte area code. 16841 actually encompasses our district and parts of Keystone Central and parts of Bald Eagle. So it's a very broad zip code too. So I think it's safe to say that with 6 new cases in 7 days that we don't have a significant community outbreak within the town or the area of Bellefonte. So in talking with other superintendents and a number of people on Friday, we had decided to wait to see kind of what happened. That substantial designation wasn't going to come until after the holiday, and I felt very strongly that we needed to do what was best for our kids. There was a mandatory meeting today held with Center County superintendents, the director of the IU, and the CEOs for the charter schools in Center County. During that meeting, and I just shared this in a letter too, during that meeting, some very significant points were made. First of all, we should never change our instructional model until we have 2 weeks of data. So instead of just jumping when we were substantial for the first week, we need to wait for another week to see if that trend is continuing. After that, even if we have 2 substantial weeks in a row, it is still a local decision. It is still our decision to make as to what instructional model we choose. And we can use local data, we can use whatever we want to make that decision. And the third thing I forget, and the third thing is if we have an outbreak in a school, the Department of Health will continue to provide us guidance. So looking at all of that information, to me, it seemed like we had no significant community transmission in our own community. And we had no cases at all in our schools or anywhere. So there was no reason at this point, in my opinion, to move to a full virtual learning model. So we are planning to say that, of course, till the end of this week. We will meet, the superintendents will meet with the Pennsylvania Department of Health and the Pennsylvania Department of Education again on Thursday. And then again, next week, they'll follow us. We are the 4th county in Pennsylvania that has moved to the substantial level. Of the other 4, and I don't know this to be true, I believe at least 2 of them have already moved back to moderate, and they didn't change what they were doing. A good example is Bloomsburg School District in Columbia County. They too had an influx of college students, and numbers went up, and the college students went home or left, and the numbers went down again. So I don't know. I do know in the call today that it is absolutely evident to me that nearly all of the new cases in Center County are coming out of the State College zip codes or the University Park zip codes. So I can guess that they're students, but we also don't know that for sure. It just seems kind of like a connection to me. I could be jumping, but it looks like a connection to me. I talked with the other county superintendents, and they were of the same mindset that until our communities or our schools were highly effective, that we would stick with the model that we have, or unless, the Pennsylvania Department of Health or PD comes out and says, no, you need to do this, and then we would follow the guidance that came from them. So that's how we came to that decision-making process. I will tell you that I have gotten an incredible number of parent emails that have been, thank you for trying to stay open. We know as educators, the best thing for our kids is to be in school. We can provide virtual education, but I'm not sure it's the best education we can provide for kids. I really think that they're being in school. And PD said that today. They're like, the best education is the face-to-face education. So if you can do it and you can remain safe, then we should continue to do that. So that's where we are with that. I have, Mrs. Krish is going to talk about some updates we have to make, and then Ms. Moore is going to talk about the athletic plan, because that changed drastically too. But
I want to thank you, Ms. Moore, for a steady hand. I think it's also important for our community to see board, the administration, the district fighting for the community. So thank you. Thank everyone, service, the OPP folks, the people who are keeping the building sanitized and just doing everything necessary to have things in place, and of course the staff and everything.
go ahead, Mrs. Krish.
So I would reiterate, what she said. And so I shared 2 documents with you, and I apologize they come late. But we knew there was a meeting today, even though I worked on these on Friday and Saturday, and knew that there could be dramatic changes. It wasn't too many dramatic changes from Friday, but that's why you have these now. And more talking points for me anyway. So the one goes into just an explanation of what she said, the different levels, because we don't do yellow, green, and red anymore. And those levels that they talk about and the 2 weeks of the data. 3 instructional models that the state promotes and also we have in our plan is the full in-person model, a blended model, and a full remote model. And so those, again, mirror what the state has, and what we're actually doing is all 3 of those models, which is the blended model. So I go into a little bit of explanation in there in that Google Doc in what the blended model looks like a little bit for our students, and reiterate some of the verbiage from the PBE website. PBE website is just massive, and so I thought if I could accumulated a few documents on here for you if you wanted to look at them, that you would have access to them. And so there's a frequently asked questions document that's also been, August 10th was whenever it was started. And it also says, are these recommendations mandatory? And no, they're intended to provide an additional tool for school entities to use when they're making local decisions considering many factors. And that was reiterated at today's meeting. And our schools that submitted plans to PDE required to incorporate these recommendations into health and safety plans approved by their governing bodies. No, not the ones up there, but there are things that do need to be updated and approved by you. But there are some things that are just updates and we go along with them. They don't necessarily have to be in our plan and updated. So I did also send you the updated plan, which I also sent to Leslie, so you can have it on your next meeting. Very minimal changes. Basically under the social distancing and other protocols section, all the changes I made are in red. I just put in our yellow phase, well, our green phase, that we have 3 learning options available. And those are the ones that we just described. And they were already in there. I just put in there that therefore our low and basically our moderate ratings. And then if we go into a yellow phase, which we're going to loosely call the substantial or something, I put a statement that reads this: data will be collected from multiple sources and evaluated by the superintendent in collaboration with other county school superintendents, IU10, health officials, PDE, Department of Health, and other reputable sources to determine the course of action. Should numbers in the county reach the substantial level, PDE will consult with districts to determine a course of action. Options may include a blended learning model, full remote as determined from collaboration with the above sources. The blended model may include the 3 choices listed in the green phase or the options below. And the other option that we really haven't, that we've talked about but have ready, but we have not talked about doing yet, is where what we would consider more of a full hybrid, where all of the active students in our buildings would come 2 days per week rather than 5 days per week. And so that's just another option, and that's always been in our plan, but I just pointed it out in the changes that could be one of our options. The other thing that I added, we're required now, I had under the, I think it's under the same section, just farther down. I already had mentioned our athletic plan in this plan, the athletic return to play plan, but I didn't link it. And we're supposed to incorporate the athletic plan into this plan. Now, not super interested in copying and pasting her 30-page document into my 30-page document. So I put an active link in there to her Google Doc for the plan, so that those at the state level, if they would like to read that link, that it's there. So that's just an active link now versus a mention in the plan. The only other thing was a cosmetic thing. We have to summarize, some of the summaries were a little off because of that statement, so I fixed them. And then under the fire drill, under other requirements, I just added a link to the PBE's fire drill page on their website, that we are following the fire drill procedures that they've outlined. And that's really all the changes I made. Those will need to be approved, but Tammy is able to, based on the board's action, is able to approve these changes until your board meeting next time, where you can formally approve this document. And so you'll see that on the next board meeting. Some of the other things that I linked in here, that early warning monitoring system dashboard is where we get the numbers on Fridays. And so if you're watching that started on August 10th, but it's updated weekly, usually by Friday at noon. The formal Excel worksheet, which is the formal declaration, comes out Mondays morning, Mondays noonish, in that time frame. So the early warning dashboard is just that, early warning. You can kind of get a head start on the numbers and the discussions that we started having on Friday. The instructional model recommendations, which are, instructional model means like blended, full, remote, those kinds of things. So there's a link to some of those. And I put the dates here when these came out so that you understand how this is a plane being built here while we're flying it. Recommendations for pre-K to 12 following identification of a case. There's an actual chart on that case, and Tammy referred to that. So it says if you have one case and your county's in the low, you do this. If you have 3 cases and your county's in the moderate, you do this. And again, this is all in collaboration with Department of Health. So even though there's a chart, we don't really get to say. We work with them, we collaborate with PD, and we collaborate with Department of Health. And so, but that chart gives you an idea of where things might go. There's also a symptomatic staff and student process flow, and this has come in handy because we have had students who, it's very normal, especially the elementary, kids come back to school in September, we're near each other, everyone gets a sniffle, everyone gets a cold. And so we have been sending kids home with fevers and sniffles and things like that. And so we have to treat them a little differently than we might have in the past. Although in the past, if you had a fever, you went home. Didn't matter if it was COVID or not COVID. And so this flow chart is just very nice for if someone has symptoms or doesn't have symptoms, and what's the policy and what's the procedures to do that. So this is a nice thing that I share with people sometimes whenever it gets a little confusing. And it differentiates between if they're symptomatic, not tested, symptomatic, cleared by the doctor, symptomatic with a test of negative, with a test of positive, all those kind of things. And so it's just a nice little chart that's not too as confusing as some of the documents. On August 24th, the fire drill and safety guidelines. The hard part about the new fire drill guidelines is that any gathering outside is, a fire drill is considered a gathering once you go outside. And so no more than 250 people at your gathering. Okay, so my school has 350 students who are active right now, plus, I don't know, 50 to 75 staff, depending on the day. And so that's too much of a gathering. So some of us are having to break our fire drills down into 2 parts. And so we're working through that and doing that. So the deal is in my building that all drills will be announced. And we'll have an A and a B group that does their drills. And if the fire alarm ever goes off, that means it's the real deal and get out, kind of thing. So we're practicing in pieces, but they know that if the alarm goes off, that means get out and, don't worry about what group you're in, kind of thing. Same thing for some of our safety drills or ALICE drills. We're allowed to have them, but again, not doing sort of our, running to rally points and exiting the building and, going out to the hallways and things like that. So we're doing more, when we can do a simulation, we're doing that. When we can't, we're doing basically a lesson plan about that part of our ALICE drills. And that's been declared acceptable to the state to do that. At the elementary level, we did a little more of that anyway, where we did more like tabletop scenario type drills. The high school was more, active type drills. So we have to adjust those as well, according to these guidelines. And then there's frequently asked questions for special ed that came out on the 31st. Then there's sports guidance that came out on September 2nd. And then there was more guidance that came out and more guidance came out and that kind of thing. So I'll turn it over to Deb to share athletics. I'm glad she's here because I was going to fake it, but it's better if she can tell you.
So one of the reasons we're presenting all this too is any change we make to these plans have to be board approved. So even the littlest things have to be board approved, and that's why we're sharing them tonight too. Now the athletics one has changed so many times that I thought Ms. Moore was going to have a heart attack the other day, but Mrs. Krish and I have learned to roll with the punches, and Ms. Moore is just now getting a welcoming to that.
I'm a planner. I'm a planner by nature. I'm organized, and this is driving me nuts. But, with everything you go through, there's growth. So I'm learning to roll with the punches a little bit better than I used to. So basically, the plan that happened on Friday got changed on Saturday and got changed again today. So basically, just to add all this in, and I know that I sent you that, and we highlighted the one part. I'm just going to change in both the phase previously known as yellow and green, are now known as low and moderate. And I've added into the spectator portion of it, as permitted by the most current regulations by the state and local government, CDC, and Department of Health. And then that way, we're all encompassing, and I'll just go by the most recent, and you don't have to see me. Most. Okay, so that's basically what I added there. To go down to our point by point, the Mountain League met today, and AVs, and we discussed everything. And there's a House bill that went through, it was passed, the Senate's gotta go through, and if it passes the Senate, then it goes to the governor. If it's passed, then the spectator rule will change, hence the verbiage in this plan will change. Quite a differentiated discussion happened today, but basically the majority of the schools are leaning towards only allowing parents into the games. And that, let's just say soccer, for instance, on Monday, we have a game with Penns Valley. We would take, we have that limit of 250 right now. We'd say only 100 would go to the participants, the officials, myself, and those essential personnel. And then we take 150 tickets then and divide it between the two schools, one way or another. So we're looking at different ways that we can angle this and stuff like that. And there would not be admission charge to the game because there's no way of knowing if all of those people, all those tickets would be used. And we would have to use our COVID infection team, our disinfecting team, I believe I call them, as our ticket people that would accept the tickets from both our fans and the opposing team's fans. And then that way we knew that we weren't, nobody with ticket would get in. We knew that we were at our limit. And it's a way to keep, the kids live with the parents. So if the kids are sick, or the parents sick, they're kind of already on quarantine. We already kind of know about it. So we're just trying to keep our pod as small as possible. We'll divide the stadium by the visitor section, and they would sit in, the opposing team would sit in the visiting section, and then the home section, we would sit over there. Football, obviously, I don't have those numbers. And we agreed that we would just, for this week, open the extra tickets that they have to the home team, and we're away. So, but they're gonna stream it for us and stuff like that, so that parents can watch. We did practice with 2 streamings, Wednesday night and Saturday night, and I think it went well. I got some thank yous, so I think that part's going well. We have a couple hiccups and purchases to make in order to do it, so we can send an iPad with the team so they can do an away game if the opposing team is not streaming. And we're looking for parent volunteers, and the booster clubs have been wonderful in helping out and signing up and doing sinus genius, and I don't know how to work it because I'm not a genius. So they've been working that and trying to get the parents signed up. So that's basically a summary. I have all the venue plans done. Obviously, they changed today, so there was no sense in sharing them. So back to the drawing board in about 25 minutes to start redoing those and making sure that we have, 25 in one locker room versus 25 in another locker room, so on and so forth. Putting them down. So that basically.
I would note that Deb is having approved her basic plan, not all of her individual venue plans. They all follow the basic plan, the big plan. And so to bring every sport to you, you will get a copy of every sport venue, like volleyball, football, soccer, whatever they are, as they move into season, and they all follow the big plan. But you will be only approving the big plan, not all those individual plans.
The venue plan are basically for the people that are working the event, the opposing team coming in, so they know what's going on, because there's a overhead picture of our stadium with numbers and where the teams go and stuff. And I do that for almost, well, except for golf, to be quite honest. I do that for all of our sports on a game-by-game basis, so the game manager knows what's going on, the opposing team knows what's going on, and anybody that's, the ticket takers on down, because I think that if everybody has a active role in what's going on and knows what's going on, anybody can ask them a question like you can at Disney World and get to where you're going. So the venue plans are just kind of a bonus per se, so everybody knows what's going on.
Is there a place like central location either on the web or somewhere else where you might maybe put a link to any live streaming that's going to happen, or so for the next game that's coming, maybe an athletics tab and the next game coming up, here's the rules for that game, or here's a link if you don't have a ticket.
I'm about as good at streaming as I am as doing a Twitter thing, so I'm going to defer that to Mr. Funk over there, please.
Yeah, we're currently kind of working on it. The problem is it's like week by week. Deb and I were talking about like there'll be a next away game, and sometimes she doesn't know until the last minute, like that they are streaming, what the link's going. Trying to get a system down for that. We're working on. We have a system at the stadium with. So if it's at the stadium, it's going to be really simple. We're working on a system with the gym and like that's in the weight games like that. So we're working on like an account for each device. Scenario. That's at some point, yeah, that's the goal. But we'll still be at the mercy of the
Even, I guess, so we're going to be approving a more general statement that says we're going to comply with any changes. Is there a place then to find what those changes are as they happen?
Right now, the Mountain ADs had till Thursday to go back to fill out a form that I submitted to all of the schools to say what our board and what our superintendent would like to see with the parents, the charging of events, so on and so forth. I talked to Ken earlier today about that. He understands where we're coming from with the money and stuff like that. And so we're going to put that together and then all put it together as a Mountain League, and that will be forthcoming and probably on the venue part, because this part doesn't really matter about money or, any of those things that it has to do with the numbers, and we'll follow those numbers that are recommended.
I'm just envisioning like, let's say a dozen people show up at the gate and didn't know what the rules were for that particular game, and then they want in. Now someone's got to turn them away, and that's never fun for anybody. So food for thought. I don't want to stress it out.
As soon as it's all nailed down, I'll certainly share.
Yeah, and this plan will be shared. And now, again, it might be helpful to have just the top 10 or something where it's like only parents or only,
Right.
ticketed people get in. So I think is what you're saying, sort of a little bit of a translation
Just a bullet list.
Yeah, a
of-
little translation of this.
Mhm.
It says, yes, we're live streaming. You can find the live streaming, stay tuned or watch the website or something like that. And yeah, so I feel like I know what you're asking for. And instead, this will be posted, but so people understand only 250 people, but that includes all the players and means really only 100 spectators, which are going to be parents. And so.
A quick way to get there, and maybe like this week's sporting events, and then click on whether it's soccer or whatever, and under that tells you the rules, or it gives you a link to a live stream if it's home game, whatever you need to know about
Let's talk to Britt about
participating or watching or whatever would be under that.
I
Just
think
like
Britt,
two clicks
I
in.
think Britt can, if we just said what you said.
Yeah, it should be pretty simple.
Britt can whip that together.
Thank you.
So to end on a positive note, we're how many weeks into our season, and I have to commend all my coaches for the staff for the great job that they're doing with the masks, with the sanitation, including the soccer balls from the pads to everything like that. I got 2 compliments about how they drove past the school band coming back from a boys golf match, and the driver, which I would hopefully translate to the coach, and the kids all had their masks on and stuff like that. So these coaches are going above and beyond. The booster clubs are helping out above and beyond, and I cannot thank them enough. We had a Wednesday girls soccer scrimmage, and we had a Saturday football scrimmage, and to be quite honest, it was a game with masks. And that's how it kind of worked out. So I want to publicly thank all my coaches and thank all the parents and the student athletes for doing what they need to do to try to keep our season going. And thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a question.
Go ahead, Dan.
Deborah, Karen.
Karen,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I can't hear either.
I had a parent ask if they have planned a trip.
Yeah.
For, I think they said October. And it's to one of the states that Pennsylvania has on the list. So does the student need to be out of school for 2 weeks?
That's the recommendation from the Department of Health.
Okay.
We can't mandate it, but we strongly recommend they follow the mandate from the Department of Health.
Okay.
Yeah. So when they ask us that, that's what we say. It's
And
highly
so-
recommended.
Just to follow up, then what we offer is virtual instruction in those 2 weeks.
Right, so yeah, so if they quarantine, like I have a student right now who came back today, and I'm working with the parent. They're coming by to pick up the Chromebook tomorrow, and they're quarantining, and so they'll just tune into the teacher's online assignments.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I have a question. So just to clarify with the substantial risk category, is that the only one that we would be moving to, I guess, mandated hybrid, where it's no longer voluntary? Because we have some that's blended right now.
Or a full hybrid or a full remote,
but
probably, or cases in the district that reach a certain level.
And so the Pennsylvania Department of Health and Pennsylvania Department of Education were very clear today that whatever we do is a local decision.
Right.
We would follow that guideline, yes,
Right.
to answer that question, but they were very clear today that it's a local district decision and not a mandate by the Pennsylvania Department of Health or Department of Education.
But
As long as you do what they say.
Correct. You could have a low county rate, but maybe we got 10 cases in a building, and we might decide to go full remote based on that, which does not put us into the substantial range, but would be considered an outbreak, and we could make that decision. And there's a chart for that as well.
right.
So it's the two things: the cases or the county levels and the zip code levels and the.
And I guess, because one of the questions that I've heard people say is, especially at the high school, the idea of having something for the whole district that's following, when maybe some of the spacing guidelines and such that are supposed to be at the moderate level should be at least, like our plan said, it was 6 feet when we get to that moderate space, where I'm hearing from teachers, they're lucky if they have 3 feet right now.
Mm-hmm.
So why aren't we doing a full hybrid, mandated hybrid, to get the numbers at the high school down?
Right.
So that the distancing can be appropriate, so we don't have an interruption and can keep kind of going forward with instruction. So that's a question that I've gotten.
So I would go back to, and I'm not trying to excuse,
I know.
whatever. And so I would go back to where the 3 models that the state suggests, and it says, in the full person model and the blended model guidelines, and this is quoted right from the PDE, recommend to maintain at least 6 feet from students whenever possible and when not disruptive to the educational process, and seat students at least 6 feet apart and facing the same direction to the maximum extent feasible. And that's how we came up with the 3 to 6 feet, and that was based on some local researchers and also the Pediatrics Association that said, 3 feet was acceptable. It's certainly not ideal. So we, what we say is you're aiming for 6 feet, don't go under 3. And that's kind of where we're at with that, because to the maximum extent possible and feasible and does not disrupt the educational process. And to some level, so we could, and we feel like we could manage a full hybrid model, but we also feel we want to have kids in person as long as possible. And so we're going to try to do that for as long as we can. Unless you want to.
Yep, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
So I will say this, if I agree that that's doable, if everybody's wearing proper masks.
And they are.
My understanding is from an email we received that people are wearing shields,
Yeah, shields are acceptable.
but they're not satisfactory. I understand that they may be acceptable.
Right.
They're not satisfactory, and the reason they're not satisfactory is because they protect the wearer, they do not protect the person they're speaking.
Correct. And so every parent that asked me, I probably have 3 to 4 kids who are wearing shields, and teachers who are wearing them sporadically. So what we come to in the teaching world, and this is elementary, I can't speak for high school. Our teachers are moving about the room more, and there's also when you're teaching a reading group where kids, you're trying to be more clear, I guess. You're teaching sounds in kindergarten. A teacher might wear a shield for 20 minutes and then put their mask back on to teach the rest of the lesson. We also have that with kids. Some kids who don't have the stamina to wear a mask, we provided them with shields, and same thing, we're practicing with them, wear your shield until you can't take it anymore, then wear your mask, and then put your shield on for a little bit, and then put your mask back on. And so we're trying to do that a little bit. So, and I tell every parent who asks me about mask versus shields, shields are listed in the PDE guidelines as acceptable. However, we do point out that they're not as effective as a mask. So yeah, it's something.
We also have both staff and students that may not be able to wear a mask due to some health conditions.
I understand that, but are we allowing gators?
Gators.
Yeah, the things that come up.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, they're not acceptable either.
I would agree, but they're listed on the governor's list, and so we don't really have much say in whether or not I guess we could refuse them.
All I'm getting at is if we're supposed to be following the science indicates
right.
that what we're wearing tonight protects him beside me. And the shield would protect me from somebody who's pronounced not wearing. So I just think that we need to talk to people about what's satisfactory and what isn't and point it out. And I'm not talking our people, I'm talking about at the state level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And are students and teachers keeping them, because you need to have your nose.
Oh, yeah.
and mouth
Yeah,
covered.
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Because just having it like low is not doing
Yeah.
anything.
To be honest, I'm shocked by it. I mean, I don't mean to sound like that, but it is amazing walking in any of our schools. And as Deb mentioned, our athletes, they're all wearing, because they want to be in school and they want to play football and they want to whatever. So they're not, it's amazing to me how great they have been about the mask.
Out of 350 kids, I've had to talk to one little guy, and he's got some sensory issues. And so he's one of my little guys that occasionally switches out to a shield. And so sometimes he pulls it down and it's not covering his nose, and the teacher reminds him, he puts it up, and then when he has a little meltdown, we switch, and then we come back, kind of thing. And so it's really getting him some stamina. But honestly, I'm not getting, classrooms I'm in and that kind of thing, I'm not seeing that at all.
It makes me so happy.
And I'm not the middle school and the high school, so I don't really know what's happening there, but if Mike would know. Nope.
Yeah, they've been great as well. I mean, it's been really impressive. I think we've had no instances of anyone at the top refusing to wear them. Have a couple kids here and there that forget to wear them. They come right in, take a mask. You can tell that they are upset that they forgot it. So, I mean, I really can't say enough about our students and families and how they've adapted to the school year.
So happy.
And I will say, and it's later in your agenda to thank some donators who donated handmade masks. Honestly, my building alone probably got 400 handmade masks. And the staff and the kids know where they are. And so if a kid forgets their mask, they come in a little sheepishly. And honestly, I think it's just one of those things, they ran out the door and they're like, I need a mask. And so we pick out a mask out of this pile and off they go. And it's been really, not a big deal. So. All right.
I'll continue with my report. And then there's Mike. Let's get him then.
You want to do that and come back here?
Yes.
Or just do you want to finish?
And I've got quite a bit here.
And I know the students have some homework too, I've heard.
Yeah, so let's get those students and things in.
All right, so
Pause.
let's go back to Mr. Fettis, and we'll pause the superintendent's report and go back to item 401 with class of 2020 and Mr. Fettis.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I know the students have some things they want to mention as well. But again, I hope everyone's well. Thank you for having me on this evening. When we spoke last, probably in May and June, we were talking about final preparation for graduation. Again, I want to add my thanks to everyone that helped out. The parents, families were wonderful. We really had a great day. Personally, I was a little nervous that the weather wasn't going to hold out, but it did, thank goodness. And we had a great day for that. We had talked then about the potential of having some other events for seniors over the course of the summer, things like prom, picnic, and things of that nature. And I think we were holding on that we would see things change with COVID, that we would have some relief from the pandemic. But unfortunately, things sort of went the other direction. We saw some spikes in cases, and really it didn't present an opportunity for us to be in a large group and do that safely. So we had been in some discussion with the class advisors and the class cabinet members as far as how they wanted to wrap up the things for their senior year and what to do with the final finances that they had. So I just wanted to report that in speaking with the class cabinet members, they want to give donations to 2 different senior scholarships that we offer. So that will help bolster that for seniors in the upcoming years. They also want to donate money to each of the current high school classes to help them with their endeavors as they continue on. And then the majority of the money that is remaining as a final gift, they want to divide that amongst the class members of 2020, again, just as a final gift, and say thank you so that they can use that as they see fit. But otherwise, that's basically how they want to round that out. I will say again, as Karen and Mr. Boffman said, Ms. Moore, Mrs. Burnford as well, students have been great this year. We've been really fortunate. They've been doing everything we asked. Certainly there's still some encouragement and reminders for all of us as we continue, but things have gone really well. If there's any questions about those, I'm happy to answer them.
I had a question in regards to homecoming. If there are any plans, like I know Penn State's doing like a virtual parade, is there any plans to have something virtual or anything in terms of homecoming? If there have been any discussions?
Yeah, we've been in touch with the student council advisors, and we've kind of said, they've kind of gone through the process that if we could have, an event, they're prepared, although that does not look like that will be a possibility. But yes, they are discussing some potential ways to incorporate, homecoming in sort of a virtual fashion. So yes, that's in the works.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Fedison. Sorry for the technical glitch there.
No problem. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, you as well. And with that, let's go down to 6.01. Either Claire or Rihanna, are you still with us?
Yeah, we're here.
Yep.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Rihanna Morris, and I'm the senior school board representative.
And my name is Claire Topper, and I'm the junior school board representative.
We first wanted to thank all the teachers, administrators, Mr. Fedison, you, the school board, for all the help and support in reopening the schools for this year. So we want to start with athletics. The girls golf team is right now 4-0. Our next match is tomorrow at home. The boys golf team is 9-1. Their next match is next Wednesday. Cross country has their first meet coming up in a few weeks. Boys soccer, the first game is September 14th, and football has a home game next Friday. And then with clubs, NHS is planning on inducting 60 or more people into the club, and then we will have a total of 116 kids in the club this year. Student council, our first general meeting is going to be tomorrow, and we're going to try to figure out how to work with homecoming for the year with the whole COVID regulations.
So this year Model UN is looking at a virtual conference, and they're having their first officer meeting later this week. And then Key Club is working on finding a time for all of their officers to meet, but it will be sometime this week. And they're also looking at some virtual community service options.
So with student concerns, we wanted to bring some of this up just to inform you on what students are thinking right now during this weird time with the pandemic. So the biggest concern that we have heard is about the school lunches. So we recognize and appreciate everything being done to help promote social distancing and helping with contact tracing. But the students have a concern about not being able to communicate with each other based on their assigned seats. There are many freshmen and new students who do not know anyone, and this is leading to social isolation. We would like to propose that students are able to pick their assigned seats for the year, and that list be used for for contact tracing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Self-monitor, powerhouse.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're on the boys are no, the boys are 9-1, aren't they? Golf. The girls are undefeated, I think.
Yeah, girls are 4-0 right now, and the guys team is 9-1.
Nice. All right, just one more before you continue. We didn't have the audio, so is there anyone's now for public comment on your screen there, Mr. Funk?
There was one earlier, but I think.
That's why I'm trying to interrupt now so we don't lose people.
Mrs. O'Donnell? It was Nate Campbell.
Yeah, this one, there was one earlier, but.
Okay, well, now that we have our audio back, if we have anyone that would like to address from the public, please just hit the raise hand. And if you could keep an eye on that, just let us know if someone does. We'll jump in. We don't want to lose anybody. Okay, with that, Mrs. Burniford.
Okay. Interim Superintendent's Report, Part 2. I'm actually going back to some of the concerns that have been shared. With the instructional models that we chose, if you recall, we gave parents 3 choices. Their students could come full-time, they could come part-time, that's hybrid, where they would come 2 days a week and learn virtually 3 days a week. And then we had the Bella option, our own internal. There have been glitches in both because of the increased numbers. About, I'd say probably 2 weeks before school started, we decided to divide into an elementary Bella and a high school or secondary Bella. And so there are 2 very distinct Bella teams. There's the secondary Bella team that Mrs. Garman is the principal of record and Mrs. Leitzel is the coordinator. And there is an elementary Bella team now where Mr. Besh is the principal and Mrs. Crusoe is the elementary coordinator. We've had trouble with both platforms. The Odysseyware platform had a lot of email trouble, and so students couldn't email their teachers and things. Eric's guys have been working around the clock on tech issues at both ends. At the elementary level, and I had actually sent this out to the board, but I'll do it publicly too. At the elementary level, there are only so many platforms that allow for online instruction and a K-5 model. If you recall, I had some reservations about a kindergarten online model anyway. We knew that it was going to take much parent support for kindergarten. Kindergarten is one of those things that you almost need to have some type of synchronous teaching. If you recall, that would be like a lesson that the teacher would do. There was only one platform when Mrs. Garman and Mrs. Leitzel come to the meeting, or was it just Mrs. Garman? But both Mrs. Garman and Mrs. Leitzel had vast amounts of experiences in dealing with these platforms for online learning. So they had chosen Pearson, and the Pearson platform offered synchronous teaching for K-5, and that was one of the reasons. I know there were questions about, well, why did we choose that one, or how did we choose that one? There wasn't a lot of option out there. We went on the advice of Mrs. Leitzel and Mrs. Garman, who had experience. Pearson has left us down in a lot of cases. Slowly but surely, they're coming around. There was supposed to be a call today. Mr. Bean, do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, the call didn't happen today. That was my fault. I got double booked on something, so we set up the call for tomorrow at 1 p.m., I believe.
Interestingly, the call that we're making is we have not paid Pearson yet, and if they don't kind of fix what they're doing with us, we're not going to. We're going to look at other options, and we've already built a stronger team at both levels. So at the elementary level, we still have Mrs. Caruso, Mrs. Colhep is helping her. We have an instructional aide helping her. We have identified teachers that have smaller class sizes at Bellefonte Elementary. Kindergarten teacher, actually it's the first grade teacher, will be providing a synchronous lesson from our own Google Classroom for our kindergarten students in Bella. We've also added, at the elementary level, we have something called ST Math. Those of you who are the parents remember Gigi. So we're offering that to our elementary Bella students. They'll be able to log in to do that. So we're providing instructional as much as we can. And we're also providing some educational opportunities elsewhere until we can get this problem with Pearson straightened out. I will tell you that there have been a good number of particularly elementary parents who have decided that Bella isn't for them for whatever reason. It could be because of the problems, but a lot of it is because they've seen how happy our kids are in school and how seriously we're taking the safety. And so some of them are coming back into our schools because of they want their kids in school, basically speaking. Interestingly, we just had one today that switched from Bella to, I thought she was going to hybrid, but she wants her kids in school all 5 days. So they have a lot of faith in what we're doing in the classrooms. They have a lot of more faith in if we have to go to a Google classroom, a virtual, because it's substantial. I think parents have seen that we're really beefed up based on what we did last spring. So there's a ton of options out there. At the secondary level, we have Mrs. Lysel as coordinator. The middle school and the high school have identified teachers who are going to be one-on-one support or a small group of case managers, so to speak. So, for example, there could be let's use a high school teacher who is given 5 kids or so, and their sole responsibility is to touch base with those 5 kids every so often. We in the past had guidelines, Mrs. Leitzel had guidelines that said, okay, you have to touch base with them every day or once a week or whatever. We really need to differentiate that K to 12. There's some kids that we need to stay on every day, and there's some kids who are just like, they're very independent in their learning, and touching base with them every 2 to 3 days is enough. So we're still feeling out what that looks like, but there are elementary Bella teams and secondary Bella teams, and we provided clerical support at both levels. Again, we've had principal support at both levels, and those teams have been working through the problems as we get to them. Pearson is not, just as an aside, is not played nicely with us some, and so that's why we have yet to pay the bill, and that's why Mr. Bean is going to be the heavy. They either need to provide the product that we agreed to and signed a contract for, or we're going to have to look elsewhere. We're going to have to do something differently. I think that answers your question, right, Mrs. Brown? Yeah. So that's where we are with Bella, and I know Mrs. Smith had some questions about help with from Mrs. Leitzel too, I believe. Yeah.
Just the last time, I was just hoping that she had plenty.
Yeah. So they've identified, actually, and I can't speak for the middle school, I'm looking at Mr. Bachman. I know at the high school, I think what they had talked about doing was teachers who had study halls, who were in charge of study halls, it was easier for them to just touch base during their study halls and things too. And then there are teachers that have assigned administrative duty time, so they're available to touch base with students and see what their problems might be too.
My understanding though is that might not cover some of the more technical questions that might come in from parents about Odysseyware or working through that program, all of those emails are still kind of being channeled to one person who might have 600 emails for a day. And that might make it unmanageable to be able to respond in a timely manner. So the administrative kind of help that has been identified in terms of communicating for parents, that might be appreciated, but there might still be more that needs to. And I know at the high school, I think maybe here, middle school, maybe the AEP room or something might be helping with that, but I don't know that that's happening. Well, it's changed at the high school because I know staffing changed within that department.
We've beefed up a lot. So we've added a lot of people to those kinds of things. And I can tell you, Mr. Funk and all of his guys he told me before, he's pretty much consumed by Bella. So
maybe just the way that, I guess, questions or problems come in and are triaged or handled, maybe I'm not sure where the hang up kind of is, but I think that some of it has probably, sounds like it might have been unmanageable for a while, just in terms of the level of emails and things like that would come in. I mean, if there's other resources that we can provide or no, because we want Bella obviously to work. Do you have a sense of any students that might have left Bella to go to another cyber?
There's really interesting. No, as far as we know, there aren't yet. They've come back, or they're patient enough to wait that out. I will tell you, the Odysseyware questions that you have too, what's difficult about Odysseyware is that it was bought out by Ingenuity. And so, of course, when one company absorbs another, then they have all new people and they have all new ways of handling things. So that was the email glitch that I know that we had for quite some time, was because they just weren't. It's also interesting too, because Odyssey Wear was the one that was being touted by PDE last spring, if you recall. They were Odyssey Wear, and Odyssey Wear was free last spring, and now they've beefed up their price quite a bit too, and we're not getting the level of service for their increased price either. So we're on them as much as we can be on them. The downfall of not having our own cyber charter, and I will tell you too, just so you know, we're working towards a curriculum, and we've started with social studies, that we will write our own curriculum for our own online Bella, our online program, basically speaking. We just don't have the curriculum there yet. So there's so many things in the works, and you know, we certainly, I know Summer Garman has been trying to field some of those middle school and high school Odyssey Wear questions as well. I would funnel them to her too. Parents have been incredibly patient. Some things just don't make sense. I'll give you an example. I've talked to a great number of parents myself, and I talked to a parent of a, she had a kindergartner, a second grader, and a fourth grader, I think it was. Kindergartner was a disaster, just could not, tech issues, just couldn't think. They couldn't print, they couldn't connect, they couldn't get the synchronous teaching, they couldn't get all of those kinds of things. Fourth grader and the second grader couldn't download some of the information, but the fourth grader had zero issues, zero. Like they could download, they could print, they could do everything. And these were all in the same house on the same kind of Chromebook. And I think at one point we even tried to investigate which kind of Chromebooks were working better than others. But some of it just doesn't make any sense. I have a relative who had her son is in second grade and her daughter is in seventh grade. And they've had more trouble with the Odyssey Wear in seventh grade than the second grader has had. So it's just been, it's so hit and miss. That's what makes it so difficult too, where we can just pinpoint, okay, it's a Chromebook issue or it's this issue. We can fix those things, but it's so difficult sometimes to track those down. We have, just as an aside number, we were at about a maximum of about 220 at elementary Bella. And that was before we offered the hybrid model. And then we offered the hybrid model and we lost 20 or 30 so to move from Bella to hybrid. And I believe we're down to about 159. I talked to Anita today, about 159. And all of those that I know in elementary are coming back to school, which has created a little bit, you talk about problems, it created a little bit of trying to get them 3 to 6 feet apart now, you know, so because we had desks, only enough number of desks in classrooms and things. So. At one point, we had 35% of Bellefonte Elementary in Bella. A great number of those students have come back too.
So you said 159 at the elementary level?
Yeah, I don't have a secondary.
Okay.
I'll get one for you.
But thank you, but it's reduced.
Oh, it's reduced, yes.
10%.
I would say. You know, when it comes to online learning, secondary students are, it's kind of like comparing college students. College students are usually more adept at online learning than a kindergartner. Those are the exaggerations. So our secondary students who are involved in Bella are pretty good at problem solving some of their own tech issues sometimes, and you know, figuring those kinds of things out. And the further you go down the line, grade-wise or age-wise, the more difficult those tech issues become because, for example, our kindergartners haven't been here, so they don't even know what Google Classroom is. So we've got to train them about the technology too. So it seems like our secondary students, more of our secondary students have hung in than our elementary students. But again, some of it is because parents want their kids in school, and we hear friends are sharing what fun they're having and how good school is, and it's a multitude of issues.
Are you encouraging students to wait out the semester?
We were, but how do you do that, especially when there's glitches? You know what I mean?
But I'm wondering though, if when January, whatever rolls around, if we get influx of students who are transferring from, you know, Bella.
I don't know what's going to happen. It has to do with COVID. It has to do with COVID. And some families chose Bella, like for very good reasons. There are people in their house that are immune compromised and things. I mean, that's what most of the parents I've talked to. And so they want to see where this COVID's going and what it's going to look like, and if there's a vaccine and all of those kinds of things before they make any changes too. I will tell you, parents have been wonderful, absolutely wonderful, helping us trying to problem solve and helping us trying to find those issues and fix those issues. again, I've been on the phone to a number of them as well, and they've been very patient and understanding, and it's sometimes understandable why their patience is getting thin, but we're trying the best we can.
Is there, in terms of, like, I know we talked about it with the hybrid model and all of that, like, have there been plans kind of in place to, if we need to switch to something like that, that parents know which group their student is in, teachers know which way, like all of that is ready? And then, I mean, in terms of training for
So while she's coming to the microphone, we have told teachers the first week of school, this is an exaggeration, but they were to teach nothing but Google Classroom. They were just supposed to teach kids how to get into Google Classroom so that if we went remote, kids would know how to do their assignments and do that virtual learning. But go ahead.
So, well, some of our kids have told us, can we take a computer break? Because we're doing a little too much training on Google Classroom. Some of their lessons in school are actually some of the online Google Classroom lessons so that they have practice, so when they're home, they can do them independently versus their parents having to hover too much. The full hybrid model. So, and again, principals are in different levels of this. And so where we all have our list split, and where right now I just got an email from a teacher. I had my lists out to my teachers, and I'm like, look for siblings that are on opposite days so that I can get them on correct days, because we thought we did that, but we missed a few. And so we haven't notified parents yet of which list they're on, but some schools have.
Okay.
And that will go out through our teachers, just because it's a little easier to send that out through homeroom teachers versus a mass, email from the principals. So,
But just so you know, there are a lot of families that have already gotten those, and they are like, but I need my siblings. I have a student at the middle school and a student here, and we can.
right. So what we're doing is we're going to toss our
Right.
lists out, and then when a parent has an issue, they need to contact us so that we can fix it. We're way willing to fix it. We just can't. It's really too hard to
between all the buildings.
Yeah, it's just too hard. So, but yeah, we're well into that process, and we're really ready. It's just, we're ready.
And I do have to say, this is one thing, the lack of papers is awesome.
Right. I didn't even think about
From
that.
a mom perspective, usually by this time, there's a pile crumpled at the bottom of the backpack. And I'm just loving the fact that they just hit,
Submit.
turn in, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're doing that. You would be surprised. The kindergarten teachers, first of all, in our kindergarten, this is no, we're not mad at the tech people. Chromebooks with touch screens for our kindergartners don't exist. Okay. And I can validate that. My daughter's a buyer for a tech company, and she's like, yeah, you're not getting Chromebooks with touch screens. Don't even ask us for them, kind of thing. And so our kindergarten kids have to use old Chromebooks with the touch pads. And honestly, they kind of thought it was cool. And the teachers were like, you know what? It's painful, but you know what? They're picking it up way faster than we thought. And they're really doing great. So
Listen, my kindergarten kids have never had the touch screen. And the first day of school, I'm like, you have to hit the blue button. And they're like,
yeah.
I'm like, no, on the keypad.
Yeah.
And it is very, very painful
and it's
the first week of school.
yes, the
You're
pain is
like,
real for a kindergarten
oh
teacher.
my gosh, but they know how to log in now.
Yeah.
I just say, pull out your Chromebooks and log in.
Yeah.
And they log in.
And it
It's
teaches them their alphabet and their numbers whenever they have to do a password. So, yeah, they like doing it, and so they figure it out. But yeah, the kindergarten teacher pain is real, so they should get the first prize.
Other questions about Belleville? Okay, the next guest speaker. The next part of my report is about the inclusion, diversity, and equity update. And I put a few things in my report. They were supposed to meet with Dr. Chatters from State College today, Mr. Bachman and Mrs. Simpson, and she had another commitment and wasn't able to meet with them. We've reached out to Dr. Heather Bennett from PSBA, and just recently we're working with PSEA because PSEA also has an equity consultant. So that's going to be a good addition to our resources.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty out there, and it's just been in a very exploratory phase, and just reaching out and gaining as much knowledge and information as we can from everyone. I will say that Dr. Chatters has just been awesome from State College. Just a wealth of knowledge, experience, information, has been a great resource for us. So Michelle and I were extremely excited when she was willing to meet with us and continue meeting with us. We have a meeting. We're planning for at least one meeting a month year round. And just being able to support each other, bounce ideas off of each other, eventually combine to address countywide issues. You know, we figure the more we can make this a countywide issue rather than just individual school issues, the more success that we're going to have, the more of an impact that we're going to make. So, you know, she's been great, and thankfully she's been excited to work with us too. And, you know, just hear what we're doing and be able to partner up. And it's always good to have someone to just, you know, support each other and bounce ideas off of going through this process. So she's been great, and we're looking forward to meeting with her next Thursday. She does have some really great resources for us, and ones that are cost effective when we start looking at equity audits and things like that. She has a lot of connections that she's been able to share with us, and, you know, just been able to learn from her, which has been really great. We did kick off the school year with Dr. Sam Richards from Penn State, and he talked to the entire staff, everyone from the entire district, and really did a nice job of outlining some of the social and political climates that we're dealing with right now, and taking questions from teachers, providing multiple perspectives on some of the issues. Just really, you know, allowed us to take another step in equipping ourselves to navigate the really, you know, complex social situations that come up, and how we respond to them, how we support our kids and navigate them ourselves. So that was an important step, and got a lot of really good feedback from that, you know, from that opening day. So that was encouraging as well. From there, we Michelle and I sent an email out to the whole staff of the district looking for volunteers, and our goal was really to get people from all over, so from all levels, and we were really happy that we got that. We could have about 32 responses so far, and that's everyone from administration, teachers, paras, custodial staff, secretaries, and just really excited to get all the different perspectives from them as we move forward. And we did send an email out to them. We've identified the 22nd of September as our first tentative meeting date, and just getting them together, starting to look at goals, missions, beliefs, you know, looking at resources, professional learning. I've had a lot of teachers reach out to me on the side individually with some really great ideas. We're really fortunate to have awesome people here in this district, and people that want to do well and want to be innovative and support kids and students and families. So they've had a lot of ideas, so we're looking forward to getting started with them as we move forward. One of the issues that I think that we have started to look at and are going to be looking at here, we've talked about curriculum, and I think that's probably one of the most effective ways that we can, you know, support our kids in this area, and help grow their capacity by having a culturally responsive curriculum and teaching them about a lot of these issues. And naturally, a good place to start with that is the social studies curriculum. And as we've said, we are in the process of writing that curriculum right now. It's not going to be a process with this curriculum writing that we're going to completely address everything that we want to and implement all that we want to right now with this process. So it's really an effort of looking at the curriculum writing through the lens of equity, and what are we already doing, and then where are some areas that we can add different things into, and then as we move forward, going through a formal curriculum audit through the lens of equity, and identifying formally from someone who's not too close to it, they have experience with it, and can tell us where we're strong, where we maybe need to improve a little bit, and then utilizing some of our outside resources that we're gaining to help us do that effectively. I think, you know, most importantly, it's about doing things the right way, in a thoughtful manner, and not rushing through things just to get them done. We have obviously been paying a great deal of attention to the timeline that was set forth. That's important to us, but we also realize that if, as we go through these processes, some of which we're going through for the first time, if we see that they're more involved than we initially thought, or just may take longer to do the right way, we're not going to rush through things just to follow the timeline. We'll, you know, certainly communicate that to you, but especially with matters like this, it's important that we do them the right way and put thought into them. Otherwise, we can end up doing more harm than good. But We have been working, hard to get this off the ground and continue what we started in this district. So, we're excited about it and ready to keep moving forward. Any questions or?
So community was supposed to be involved, they'd be coming on
Yes,
later, right?
yeah, I actually
Yes.
reached out to a community member today who I know had been interested. And right now, we're just kind of working out the logistics and how we're gonna include them, but definitely we want them involved. And we kind of figured we'd get our feet underneath us with our district committee, talk to them, see where we're at, and then, work to involve the community. Because, that's a huge aspect. And I think as we move forward with this, not just involving the community, but reaching out to the community and providing different, types of services. And the more we can partner with State College and Dr. Chatters and being able to do those things is really important.
I've had a couple of community members say to me they would really like to be part of the solution too, and they're really interested in. We kind of need to get settled here at the district level, and then certainly, absolutely. I mean, we've kept, he's talked to someone, we've kept names. And I know we have a few board members involved as well too.
Yep. Yep. It's just, it's going to be a long, continual process. That's, again, sometimes we just have to, take it slow and make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
I
guys.
think I'm to the final part of my report. I know it's going to be long. So this is just for mention now, but it's something we're going to have to talk about or something we're going to have to entertain. So I talked to Mr. Barbaro this week. The district requires community service. I believe it's 30 hours of community service each graduation class or graduating class. We're finding that our class of 2021 is having a very difficult time performing that community service because some of the community organizations that they like to volunteer with or they have done in the past are either shut down or they can't accept volunteers. A good example is, Center Crest used to have volunteers and now we can't do that. And some of our students have volunteered in their churches and their churches haven't had, those opportunities as well. So in talking with him, I think we're going to need to make a recommendation that community service either be minimized or waived or something for the class of 2021, unless something breaks or something changes. I think it's very difficult for our students to get those hours in this environment that we have right now. And just as a point of reference, we waived the community service hours for the class of 2020 because some students didn't have theirs and they couldn't volunteer in their communities during the closure. And so we've waived it in the past. Mr. Barbaro said that it would be his recommendation that we either waive or reduce them greatly.
There are some virtual opportunities, and that's something that's growing. I know working at the university level that's something that I've been exploring and expanding, just virtual service opportunities. So there are some neat things, but I don't know age-wise whether they'd be appropriate. But
I agree. And Mr. Barbaro was coming up with a list. They were coming up with a list of things. What's happening from what I'm hearing is we're overwhelming whatever that list is.
Yeah.
So let's say the borough would like volunteers and things. And then what happens is you've got 40 kids that need hours. And so I guess some of our athletic teams also used to get community service hours by doing different functions as an athletic team.
Yeah.
But again, those got shut down too. So.
Now, do you know if the Center County Elections Office is still needing volunteers for polling places?
I do not, but Mr. Fitzgerald has.
I think he probably has about 100 students that are on the list that are supposed to be signed up. And they will get community service hours for that.
Not a lot of his.
Yeah, they will. So, but the question is, I think right now they're trying to figure out where their precincts and such will be and where we'll be in November
and community services are a requirement, not the state's. Again, I don't know if it's something we want to hold off on, but Mr. Barbaro asked that I at least bring it to the table so that you at least know that right now, some parents are very worried that their students won't have community service hours and won't be able to graduate. This time of the year, parents start to ask questions about graduation. So he's been putting them off and saying, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So
I can't imagine we wouldn't.
I thought that too, but I didn't want to. If the board pleases, we can put it on as an agenda item. board meeting, or we can hold off right now, it's up to you.
I'd like to wait and see how January could be completely different than it is now. We might want to just reduce the hours, so I would just wait, but to offer comfort, we will do whatever it takes, so parents and students don't have to worry. We just don't know what that is yet.
Yep, we can do that. And that's my report. Do you have any questions?
The other thing that had popped up for me is the kids will lead the way. That's what I just heard.
Exactly.
The kids will lead the way.
Exactly.
I did see for, I guess on the, I can't remember where it was, through social media, something about donations for Wi-Fi or like hotspot devices or something like that. Like, is that still something that we're like collecting?
We have 25 MiFis coming in. I just got notice they're being shipped. I'll have them probably by Friday, that are available to students in the district that parents can't afford or have access to Wi-Fi. Now there are, I heard say there's another free service or next to free, very low cost internet available through a couple of providers as well. So
okay,
we'll work with them on whatever means they need.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Burnford.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sharp, are you with us this evening? All right, if you are and you have anything to say, please let us know. And do we have anyone here from Mrs. Comfer or anyone else from the educational support personnel? I need to start reaching out to them ahead of time so I don't have to keep calling. All right, with that, there were 2 items that we needed to pull out of the consent agenda. Julie, can you remind me what those were?
I think it was 703, 704. Let me just double check. Yes, 703, 704.
And 710, if you don't mind.
712.
7-1. Okay, so let's do 7-1 first then. It is recommended that the board approve the various resignations and retirements listed before you on board docs. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
And comments?
A number of folks on the retirement list, I don't want to slight anyone that I'm not familiar with. The person I was really hoping was going to be here, because I was going to try to have him talk a little bit, is Mr. Neff.
Forever, be here forever.
And if you look, since 1998, if you think where technology was in 1998, and then where we are now, and the travels that the district has had that he's been a part of. So I just wanted to bring him up and thank him for everything that he's done.
Not going yet. Not counting.
Okay.
January.
He is responsible for where we are as far as technology is concerned. I believe that our district was great because of him, not to slight anybody else, but Mr. Neff is just, he really was very instrumental in everything that we have. So he deserves so much thanks and recognition.
I remember contacting him. I worked at the school wires, and I, as a parent, was trying to find stuff on the old website. And I finally called him. I'm like, I can't find anything on this website. And he, was grumpy and said, well, I'm really busy. But then it sounds just like
He's just gruff on the outside.
Yes, on the outside. Yeah. And then it was such a pleasure to work with him. He was just amazing. He and his team, and they put the website together, and just, he will really be missed.
I know when we first started with Zoom in the middle of the crisis, he was, let's just say he was putting a lot of hours into trying to figure it all out. So he really just, whatever you threw at him, he's like, go, I'll make it work
He
somehow.
has saved us a lot of.
Yeah.
Very resourceful.
All right, any other comments? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Gazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowell?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Okay, not to sound too complicated, motion passes. By the way. Motion carries. Entertain a motion for consent from 7:02, 7:05, 7:06, 7:07, 7:08, 8.01, and 8.02.
So moved.
Second. What about 709?
If like 7:09 as well. Thank you for clarifying that. Is that kosher with the
Second.
motion made? Okay. All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gazella?
Yes.
Mr. Crowell?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. 7:03, it's recommended that the board approve the following extra duty, extra pay positions for 2020, 2021 school year as listed on your board docket.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
I'm just gonna abstain because Ed is listed, my husband is listed on there for a couple of positions and was advised that that might be wise for me to do.
Okay, thank you. Any others? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Crowell?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner?
Yes.
Mr. Gazella?
Yes.
Mr. Crowell?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. 7:04 is recommended that the board approve the following extra duty, extra pay positions again for the 2020 and 2021, as well as 2021 and 2022 school years, as listed on your docket. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions and comments?
I'm gonna abstain from this as well.
Same reason, I assume?
Yes, please.
Are there any others? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner?
Yes.
Mr. Gazella?
Yes.
Mr. Crowell?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you. 7.10, it is recommended that the board approve the following internships for 2020, 2021 school year. Have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
I do have a question, and as a person who had to do student teaching, but my question is, we have 21 Penn State students and one Bloomsburg student. What is our policy on that, having to do with the COVID, and what plans do we have in place, especially since they have such an outbreak? They're pre-student teachers. I wasn't sure. I thought we weren't having volunteers. But
Yeah, we had a big debate in August about whether or not to have student teachers. And so when we debated not having them, not allowing them. But we also debated, the value of having student teachers and also the value to them to be able to do their internships with us. And so we agreed to allow them and gave some preliminary kind of guidance to the universities. They were kind of looking to us for guidance. Again, I can only speak for me, but, and this is something we talked about as principals. I gave them what I call the mom talk. And it was like, you're coming in my building, you're now considered a teacher, a professional, and you need to act like a professional. What you do outside of school affects everyone here. You don't want to be the one to shut us down, blah, blah, blah. So, and so I got a little bit of insight into their personal lives and, how they're handling themselves out of, when they're on campus, and a little bit of trust with them. So, so we're cautious, but at the same time, we have allowed them.
Somewhat like substitute teachers. You can figure that some of the substitute teachers that we have could be hanging out in Penn State too, we don't know. We went round and round and round. We investigated what other districts were doing. It was the full gamut. Some are not allowing them in their buildings at all for any reason. Some are just treating them like the regular teachers and not even doing anything.
Right.
So we tried to settle on,
And Penn State's doing pre-student teachers are coming 1 week and then off 2 weeks. So instead of coming like an hour here and an hour there, which is, a little more risky, they're coming for a full week and then they're gone for 2 weeks and then back for another week. And so, yeah, it was sort of a gamble that we decided to try. We're also doing that with some mental health providers that come in and work with kids as well. And they're seeing lots of kids around the county as well. And we probably could have forced them to see kids outside of school hours, but some of our kids really need the supports during school hours. And so that was another gamble that we agreed. In most cases, we've asked them for their health and safety plans. Now, Penn State was actually asking us for, and Lock Haven, what do you want from our students, versus them saying, here's what we're going to do. Plus, their situations are public as well. But like the YMCA gave me their plan, the agency folks that are coming into our buildings gave me their plans so that we could see what they're, and they're following, again, the guidelines that we're following as well. But we do have those. I do have those as well.
6 of the ones on here are also nursing, which we can right now use the extra hands for nursing as well.
Yeah.
So we're relying on the mom talk.
A little bit, yeah. Not saying it's not a risk. It's just, yeah.
I think Penn State's going to be upping their testing as well, too, from what I've heard. So, there may be more regular mandatory testing that they'll be
And
going
again,
through.
that is my concern is because we're doing so well here.
Yeah.
We just have to be really protective of, our community is going to follow the rules because we want to be here. So everyone's buying into it.
So do our
That's just my
student teachers, though.
Pardon?
Our student teachers want to be here too because their whole career and life depends upon it.
That's true, and I'm not disparaging them, I'm just concerned.
Yeah.
We also we looked at whether at one point we decided, we have talked about this, we talked about maybe we only allow the student teachers that lived off campus or so. And then that becomes a very fine line too. So we decided not to draw the line there.
Yeah, I won't get into the whole debate we had, but we probably had a good hour or two debate on this very topic of and it went both ways for periods of time. And then we kind of slept on it and came back to it. And it was like, yeah, it was one of you're absolutely right. It was kind of one of those discussions that we didn't feel good about either way, and so we decided to lean toward trusting them. And that's why most of the principals decided I'm going to trust them, but I'm also going to have a chat and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Stein?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bretler?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Gazar?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Could I ask you all to please refresh your computer? I did add something under items removed from consent for Dr. Edler. It is J.C. Orr settlement 1003. So make sure everybody sees that.
Yeah, I guess we really shouldn't be adding here, but. So does anyone object to adding, 10.03 to the agenda? And this one is for, okay, so this is a subject we've been talking about for a while.
Yes,
This was something that an email came through.
yes.
Well, I'm more concerned about public input. We can't be adding stuff and then not allowing. So we'll have public comment again after that, so we should be okay. So there's no objection. We'll add it to it. All right, so that brings us down to item 9.01, roof maintenance. is recommended that the board approve the quote for the roof maintenance program for Pleasant Gap Elementary School. The cost is $4,035 per year. The 15-year roof warranty that we had when the roof was replaced in 2005 expires this year. You can see that quote and scope of work on your board doc there. Have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions or comments?
What does $4,035 per year mean?
Mr. Bartow, can you hear us? Are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like to?
What was the question now again?
Go ahead.
Mr. Bartow, what does $4,035 per year mean? Like how many years?
That's a per year quote on this is you renew it every year. So it gives you the basis of what they will provide for us for the year. And then it's automatically renewed unless we or Tremco decide or WTI decide to end that. Does that answer your question?
I don't think we can approve a contract that goes to an infinite number of years without a total cost. So it probably have to be renewed every year.
Yeah, that's fine.
Any other questions or comments?
Will this need to be rewritten and then resubmitted?
Yeah, I tend to agree. This is more just a proposal. There's not really an agreement that I could tell. So
We do a purchase order for the year. So the purchase order is only good for the 1 year for this quote.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bartow. So like, are they working on it every year, or is this like I'm sorry.
So in place of the warranty, this is if there's a roof leak that we report it, then the roof leak is covered. We don't pay any additional for that. So this covers our roof maintenance program for the year. As a warranty, if you have a roof leak, that they come out and fix the roof leak at no charge. So since the warranty is expired, this is their roof maintenance program, which covers the roof. You know, we could have a roof leak, you know, every day, and we turn it in. We're not going to get charged for it. This covers the roof leak or any roof leaks plus any PM maintenance that they see that would be needed on the roof.
actually, that's a little different than what I was reading, that they would dispatch a contractor, but it didn't say that there would not be a charge.
Yeah, the contract. Well, they have different contractors who do in different areas of the country as they cover, and I can't think of who the name of the outfit is that normally comes, but when I call in a roof leak, they dispatch their roofers who work for them, you know, as subcontractors.
So I guess because this sort of made the agenda without a discussion item prior, we're trying to get away from that and do a discussion on these kind of things at one meeting so we can get questions in and then vote for approvals on the following. Is that something that, since we have another meeting in September, that we can push approval to the next meeting and get some questions answered?
Yeah, the warranty expires September 29th, so the next meeting's on the 22nd.
Is that what I'm hearing? Are you guys comfortable with that?
I mean, I get what it's saying. It's basically saying you're paying $4,000 a year, and then we call them on the things that are listed here to come and fix.
Well, it sounds like they do an inspection as well and fix things that they preemptively that they think could be a problem. They provide us with a leak report for the building, et cetera. My question, Aaron, is just, I did not see where leaks would be repaired at no additional cost, if that's included. It makes it sound like they're going to dispatch a contractor from a list of available people. So if we could get clarification on that.
Okay, yeah, but that is, any roof maintenance agreement that we have, that's part of it, is that all the roof leaks are covered.
Any other questions, comments on that? So I'd make a motion to amend that we, or I guess just table this till the next meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so the matter's tabled. Aaron, if you can get an answer to that question and maybe try to get a term so that we can, if you want to do a multi-year, so that we have a total cost associated with the term of the contract.
Sure.
Or annually, whichever way you want to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. All right, item 902, it is recommended that the board approve the payment to J.C. Orr for $667.22 for the approved change order to install 3 access doors per code. A motion for that? Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
Where are these doors going?
Aaron, you're up again.
These were access doors placed into the ceilings in 2 in one in the kitchen or the large concession stand area, 1 in the visitors locker room, and 1 in the home team locker room for code to access the mechanical equipment in the ceiling.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner? Yes. Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Gazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowell?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith? Yes. Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 903, it is recommended that the board approve to pay pay app number 9 for J.C. Orr in the amount of $45,527.56. A motion for that? Have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Aaron or Ken, you want to explain that?
Yeah, this is the normal pay app, the one we were holding on to till everything was settled. So this is the final pay to J.C. Orr.
I see there's no work for this period. It's just releasing in the retainage that we have.
Yeah, it's releasing retainage. I believe there is one small amount still outstanding on another app for a change order that they have not done. Other than that, this is the final main work.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner? Yes. Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Gazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowell?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith? Yes. Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 904, it is recommended that the board approve the following additional school police as presented for the 2020 and 2021 school year. Greg Davis. A motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bruckner? Yes. Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Gazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowell?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you. Item 1001 is recommended that the board approve the following donations. 75 handmade masks for Bellefonte Elementary from Janet Kite. 36 handmade masks for Bellefonte Elementary from Wanda Liston. 500 masks from a group of community members for students at Bellefonte Area School District. And 70 Stir Crazy Pizza Kits for Marion Walker Kindergarten Camp from Ronnie's Place. And lastly, 2 boxes of school supplies to Bellefonte Elementary from St. John's Church. A motion for that?
So moved.
Seconded. Any comments?
Thank you.
How very generous of them.
Yes. Thank you to all who continue to donate, the entire community. It really does help. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Kazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 10.02, it is recommended that the board approve the following policy for adoption. It's policy 204 on attendance. This is the final reading. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Kazar?
Yes. Motion carries. Item 10.03, it is recommended that the board approve the settlement between the district, J.C. Orr, Reynolds, and Crabtree Wurban Associates, which will require the district to pay J.C. Orr the sum of $64,000 each. So motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Simon?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Kazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Motion carries. 10.04, it is recommended that the board approve Donna Smith to attend the 2021 Leadership Center County. Tuition cost is $2,155. Ms. Smith received a scholarship for $905. Of the remaining balance, she is going to pay $450 and is asking the district to pay $800. So a motion for that.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Actually, I received another $200 for COVID assistance, so I will pay $350. And if the district will do $700 instead. I'm committing over 6 months period of time, 14 events and about 100 hours. I, of course, will work really hard to be an advocate for the school district and for public education. We will be looking at our criminal justice system, our health and human services, our economy in Center County, the arts, the environment. And I think that having a board member, someone representing public education is really important.
And I would chime in. I was a graduate of 2018, the class of 2018 for Leadership Center County. And Mrs. Krish, we're all shaking our heads.
2003.
It is the best opportunity to share our message, to speak for public education. During my year, I was the only person, I believe Mrs. Krish was the only person from that walk of life during our year too. And it is a wonderful opportunity to sell our district and to really help people understand the challenges that public school districts face today.
Like we said, how they're going to change the curriculum, because a lot of it's visiting places and hands-on.
It's
I
virtual.
know. I'm
It's all
sad.
virtual.
It's not all virtual. Some of it is in
Well,
live.
so I'm on the History Day committee. So the History Day, I believe, is November. And the History Day committee, it is somewhat virtual, and you'll be with your group and you'll have to go to the different places. And there's some pretty cool places to go. And it really makes you proud of the Bellefonte history that we have too. I missed the last History Day committee, so I don't know what happened, but.
Make the motion as amended.
because of the cost difference.
Yes, so he's
Right.
making a motion to amend to the $350 and $700.
Right. The board is 700 and I will write a personal check for $350.
So there's a motion to amend. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Any other comments? I have to chime in and say, I think it's a wonderful thing that we have board members representation as well. And I really appreciate you being willing to put forth the effort that it's going to take. So thank you. Okay, any other comments? All right, roll call, please.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver? Yes. Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Kazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. All right, motion carries as amended. 10:05, it is recommended that the board approve the following memorandum of understanding between the Bellefonte Area School District and the Bellefonte Area Education Association and the Bellefonte Area Education Support Professionals Association regarding cleaning and sanitizing in the classroom. And that's on your docket. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll move.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments? Anybody offering an idea of, can you just speak to it quickly?
Sure. So this MOU was actually brought to us by both associations. The Teachers Association has really stepped up and is helping with some of that cleaning and sanitizing between classes and things. And they wanted the support staff union to understand that they weren't taking work away from them, they're just trying to support them. So they asked that it be placed in an MOU. It's been screened by our solicitors, and they basically have said it's really kind of between the two associations, but we certainly support their supporting each other.
I would have to echo that. Whether it's memorialized in writing here or not, we really appreciate them just being flexible and working together.
Absolutely.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver? Yes. Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Kazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. 10:06, it is recommended that the board approve the following memorandum of understanding between the Bellefonte Area School District and the Bellefonte Area Education Association regarding a social worker. And that's on your docket. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions?
I can explain.
Yeah,
This one was
good.
actually part of the negotiations that occurred when we were negotiating a contract with the professional staff. It basically says if we ever hire a social worker, they'll be part of the bargaining unit and not an administrative type position. If you recall last year, Mr. Bean had a social worker in the budget and we could not afford it. So we're contracting one out of the IU as we've done in the past. So as of right now, it's not in effect. We haven't hired a social worker, but they're asking that if we do hire a social worker, that it be part of their bargaining unit. And again, that came out of negotiations when we were negotiating an agreement.
Okay, any other questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Kazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 10:07, it is recommended that the board approve the contract between Viata Home Healthcare and the Bellefonte Area School District from September 1st, 2020 to June 1st, 2021. Have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any explanation there, or pretty self-explanatory?
I didn't negotiate the contract or anything, but it's the same as what we've done in past years. Mrs. Brown handled nurses now, so she took care of the contract. But as far as I know, it's the same as last year.
Any other questions on that? Roll call, please.
Dr. Badger?
Yes.
Mrs. Bruckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Kazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 10:08, it is recommended that the board approve a tuition waiver for Ms. Chrissy Bickle to allow under policy 202 her daughter to attend Bellefonte Area High School for the 2020-2021 school year in her senior year. A motion for that.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. I know that we have done this where it's appropriate. Any brief explanation there if warranted?
No, but I will tell you, all three of those tuition waivers are seniors, of course, that fall under that policy, and they all three have very different circumstances. That's all I can say.
That's fine, yeah, that's fine. Okay, any questions?
Mr. Gazar, you could put those three together if you wish.
Yeah, if nobody has any questions on those three. So, let's see, how would I do that? I'm gonna have to amend the motion to include 1009 and 1010.
So moved.
All in favor of amending the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, still any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brown? Yes. Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Gazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowley?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Batson?
Yes.
Motion carries, thank you. 10.11, it is recommended that the board approve a resolution establishing property tax rates and deadlines for discount, face value, and penalty amounts as before you on your docket. Do I have a motion for that? Moved, second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Can you brief explanation of what happened here?
Yeah, this is something Mr. Musser brought up that's part of new school law, and I can't remember the bill number, but allowing the district to reduce penalties for the late payment of real estate taxes. Currently, we extend our 2% discount anyway to the end of October, and November is at face, December is a penalty at 10%. So we propose to reduce it to 5%, which still encourages early payment, which the district, if all years, needs it this year, but still reduces the burden for those people that cannot make those payments.
Questions or comments for Mr. Bean? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Gazar?
Yes.
Mr. Crowley?
Yes.
Mr. Musser?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Batson?
Yes.
Mrs. Berkman? Yes.
Motion carries, thank you. And one last shot at public comment. Do we have anyone wishing for public comment? Okay. 11:02, items for future agenda or discussion.
I just wanted to say this Friday is September 11th, and we'll commemorate the events of September 11th, 2001. I was only a couple months here, a couple months old, but so I don't remember. But
You could have done without that part.
yeah,
Let me get that in.
but I wanted to just take a moment to honor a 1993 graduate of Belpine High School, Lieutenant Jonas M. Panic. Part of the new track's namesake is in his honor. We have memorials in front of the high school for him. I know my church, he went there, we have a memorial for him. So I just wanted, this Friday, when you stop and take a pause to remember all those who lost their lives on that day. Just remember that one of our own, and honor his memory. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you. Any others?
I'd like to ask, I know we talked about it a few meetings ago, but I would like to again ask sometime in the fall for a presentation about the mascot's history. And so that we can have that, at least my understanding was that there was a presentation made, but it did not make it onto the agenda previously. So I would like to see that on the agenda sometime for us.
Okay.
I'd like to see us perhaps next meeting. And the reason I ask is because during this meeting, we received an email from somebody who decided to send us an email instead of comment. I think the questions in that particular email also lead to us asking some questions regarding that, and perhaps we'll answer some questions for those who want to publish in the red line.
So if we can look at that and see where it makes sense to put that into your proposed schedule. Sounds like the sooner we can do it, the better.
I would also ask, at the outset of this discussion, there's like this window that people from outside the community were able to speak in as members of our public comment sections. And a lot of those spoke as to one aspect of this. folks who are on the other side of that feel as though they didn't have the opportunity to have people speak from the other direction on that. I think it would be fair. I don't like using that phrase often, but I think it would be fair if the opportunity were there for some folks from outside of the community to counter some of the things that were said by other people early on.
So we'll have to, I know that's tough. It really is tough because it seems like maybe one side of the issue was heard a little bit more than another side. And I know I've gotten lots of emails stating similar things. It just, we'll have to talk about where we can fit that in, because I hate to do it too soon before people have an understanding of where we are with the overall project. Then I think it's almost a lost effort, or not maybe as meaningful in the decision matrix if it's not timed right. So again, obviously we want to do all this earlier is better than later, but if we can just try to figure out where we can put that in to at least let people know what our tentative timeline is for that.
Now, the reason I didn't bring that up is I really don't think we should be discussing this right now at all. You know, the last meeting, it was 2 weeks before the start of school, and every mother in this district was tortured by their decision how they were going to bring their children back to school, whether it was full remote, hybrid, in person, and people were coming to watch that meeting for that reason. And the first 45 minutes of that meeting were about this issue. We didn't get to discussion about back to school until 2 hours later for 45 minutes. You know, so I don't think we should be engaging in that discussion right now. But again, it's coming from one direction, and I feel as though I got to speak for the other direction. So.
I'd actually, oh, go ahead.
No,
I was just gonna say, I mean, at least at the last meeting, I thought that there's been discussion on both sides of this issue. And I understand that there are some people that felt like they weren't able to speak at the last meeting. But I mean, just to spell, I mean, I think that I have lists of who spoke at all of our meetings. I've taken notes. So I think that maybe there's a perception, but I think the perception is probably different than reality.
Yeah, because there has not been a meeting yet where there hasn't been someone from both sides that have spoken. Now, that one particular meeting, there were some people that came, and I like just clarification. I remember some of them saying that they applied to come speak. Is that a thing, I guess?
No, so if you look at the policy, they're supposed to register, and I think this is where the policy committee needs to bring something forth to change that. And there really should be a form that should be filled out. So if you're an outside entity and you have a legitimate interest in a board, in a contemplated board action, then we say you're allowed to speak. But you have to register that, what your interest is, who you're representing, who you're associated with. And none of that happened. They just sent an email, said, oh, we feel we have the right to speak, and they showed up. And
All right.
so it caught us off guard.
Okay.
in
Yeah,
the
I was just,
process.
I didn't know what the policy was.
And then, of course, they're here and probing the system, I think, is what was going on there. But in any case, it caught everybody off guard. So then the next week it's, well, you let them speak. Why can't we speak to us?
Well, the one thing I did want to add is I understand Mr. Steiner does not want to address this issue. However, it is a hotbed issue in our community for both sides. And I don't think we can just say, well, I'm going to ignore you and I'm going to ignore you and we're just not going to talk about it at all.
No, I agree.
I think we owe it to the community to have a discussion from all points.
The people that I know that are in favor of it or think, oh, it's the times or whatever, they've all said this isn't the time to have the discussion. But again, it always.
Presentation is a discussion.
Right. In the focus and the perception from the community. First off, on this issue, this board is offline with the community, and it's not particularly close. And people want to see us focus 101% on the anvil hanging over our head and what is important to their children coming to school. So it's all of that.
I mean, I respectfully disagree. These Save the Mascot signs all over the community speak differently, and emails that we've gotten. People, this is important to people, or they wouldn't be having the signs, or there wouldn't be discussion.
The signs wouldn't want us having this discussion.
But other people do, so we need to cover both sides.
I think everybody's made their point clear that we want to have a discussion on the topic as soon as we can. I also think that through our discussions, we feel pretty strongly that, A, we needed to get back to school and get some sense of normalcy. We've made it 2 weeks, so be a little patient. You've heard some presentations this evening that things are coming together. Let the school get their feet under them. Maybe the history piece can come in sooner. Everybody will have a chance to speak on the issue. We're not trying to do anything nefarious there. It's just there's a process to follow and not just react and then be forced into a decision over the course of 1 or 2 meetings. I want everybody's voice to be heard. I'm not picking a horse in the race, so to speak. We just want to do it right, do it in a methodical way, and do it in a way that we're prepared to hear that information and understand based on other audit reviews and things that we've gone through in the district. So yeah.
I think that's part of the confusing part. It's nobody knows what everything you just said is, because it has not been explained. And so if that could be explained, then maybe we could understand what the process is. And to go back to some of the decision-making that other boards have made regarding their mascots, Radnor they just retired theirs and retired the Raider also. That was at a special meeting on September 5th. All I'm getting at is everybody says the same thing. If you look at all the information that's out there, all the arguments are exactly the same. So that part's not going to go away. It's more a matter of the process that we're going to follow. All we're asking for at this particular moment is just to see the history, because I don't think it's been satisfactorily vetted yet, because I've seen a number of different things out there. And so if we can do that, then perhaps we could eventually see some numbers that we can put up against it if that's part of the process. But I don't know what the process is, because it hasn't really been described.
All right, so we'll work on that.
Thank you.
Any other items? Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Hey, my dad, thanks. You're younger than I am. You're always busy. I know, Kristen, I didn't know you were actually. Yeah, 2003. 2018. Yeah, I nominated Karen. Maybe I should. Yeah, I know, you're not having a retreat or anything, so I don't know how that's really gonna be.
It's such a bummer. I mean,
Could have, wasn't that one?
it's not, I don't